Rob, this is an uphill battle for El Chapo, but the man nicknamed Shorty tonight is in a do-or-die situation. The convicted Sinaloa Cartel boss, who was responsible for 80% of Chicago's illegal drug trade.
In the pitch-black expanse of the Sonoran Desert, at exactly 4:42 in the morning, an armored convoy slipped across the border, transporting more than 300 gunmen and weapons lethal enough to erase millions of lives. They believed themselves to be the predators, never realizing that every move was tracked, every transmission intercepted, and an unseen blade was poised to strike. What unfolded when the Sinaloa Cartel dared to cross the United States' red line? The truth behind this chilling confrontation will keep you hooked to the very end. Hit subscribe, switch on notifications, and step into the story hidden within the desert's deadly silence. At 4:42 on the morning of August 12th, more than 300 gunmen from the Sinaloa Cartel, escorted by a convoy of heavily armored vehicles and 6 containers of fentanyl, crossed the Mexico-United States border and drove straight into the Sonora Desert. This was no ordinary incursion. It was a declaration of war, an audacious assault on the sovereignty and pride of the United States, carried out on its own soil. The cartel was convinced they could slip past radar, overwhelm border forces, and vanish before dawn. What came next, however, was no pursuit. It was a campaign of annihilation, where every grain of sand was weaponized, every signal was intercepted, and every step marched them closer to destruction. This is the story of how the United States military wiped out the entire cartel force in the heart of the desert. No warnings, no choices remaining. Stay with the story to uncover how the United States answered those who dared to cross the red line. Don't look away before the truth is revealed, and remember to subscribe and share your thoughts on this battle. At 4:42 in the morning, the sky over southern Arizona lay in complete darkness. No moon, no stars, no patrol aircraft overhead. Along the edge of the Sonora Desert, less than 2 kilometers from the Mexican border, a massive convoy glided silently through the Sierra El Pinacate Pass, a natural corridor once used for drug smuggling, now widened into a temporary route for tactical invasion. There were no warnings, no radio transmissions, only the muted growl of diesel engines running in stealth mode and the faint shimmer of infrared lights scanning the ground ahead. At the head of the convoy rolled 3 armored command vehicles, followed by 18 military transport trucks, 24 modified SUVs bristling with heavy machine guns, 4 armored units fitted with mobile anti-aircraft systems, and 6 refrigerated containers carrying more than 2.7 tons of pure fentanyl, enough to kill over 200 million people. On board were more than 300 cartel gunmen, armed with M4 carbines, PKM machine guns, M203 grenade launchers, FN6 shoulder-fired missiles, and a dozen mini kamikaze drones. The convoy belonged to the Ghost Unit, a covertly re-engineered arm of the Sinaloa Cartel, composed not only of elite gunmen but also battle-hardened Colombian mercenaries, ex-park soldiers trained in special operations, semi-professional artillery teams wielding formidable firepower, and advanced electronic warfare specialists. This force was built for bold cross-border operations, functioning entirely outside Mexican government control to ensure maximum flexibility, secrecy, and tactical autonomy in its missions. But the question remained, why would the cartel take such a reckless gamble? Why would an organization renowned for operating in the shadows mobilize a large, heavily armed force to march straight into U.S. territory? The answer begins 2 weeks earlier on the 29th of July when the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, working in coordination with the Mexican military, dismantled a critical Sinaloa transit route in Sonora, seizing more than 40 tons of precursor chemicals and arresting 17 fentanyl processing technicians, including the son of a senior commander. That raid did more than inflict financial damage on the cartel. It shattered the unspoken pact between the cartels and local Mexican authorities. Sinaloa believed it had allies embedded within the government, only to realize it had been betrayed. In response, the cartel's leadership authorized an unprecedented counterstrike. Cross the border, strike directly at the United States, obliterate border checkpoint number 13 in Arizona, seize control of a newly established fentanyl transit route in the Gila Mountains, and deliver a blood-soaked message to both Washington and Mexico City. We are not easily crushed. The order was issued on the 9th of August under the codename Operation Roto, with the objective of infiltrating within 90 minutes, destroying the checkpoint, reclaiming the seized fentanyl shipments, and withdrawing before dawn. The force was commanded by Salvador Eli Carranza, a figure carrying a $10 million U.S. bounty, infamous for more than 50 assassinations in Culiacan and for operating a vast drug distribution network spanning Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico. Carranza, a notorious smuggler, had no idea he had been under surveillance for more than a year. Every transit route, driver roster, satellite ping, and fake phone credit transaction tied to him had been meticulously dissected by the U.S. Department of Defense's Border Analytics Data Center. Fed through advanced algorithms, the data laid bare his entire operational network. The instant Carranza's convoy crossed the virtual boundary established by NORAD, the Killbox Bravo system, a cutting-edge defense network, triggered automatically. Drones were launched, targets locked with lethal precision, poised to eliminate the threat in seconds. No sirens, no flares, only encrypted pulses from magnetic sensors buried deep beneath the earth, feeding data straight into the command center. Bravo 01, hidden within swirling dust, scorched cacti, and jagged cliffs, fixed onto the target with flawless precision. 3,000 U.S. soldiers, including elite Delta Force, battle-hardened SEAL Team 6, Agile Rangers, Steadfast Marines, the highly mobile 82nd Airborne Division, combat engineers, advanced UAV units, and cutting-edge electronic warfare teams were organized into 14 tactical clusters. For 40 consecutive hours, they dominated the brutal terrain, maintaining razor-sharp focus, never breaking visual or signal contact, poised to strike in lethal silence. No reconnaissance drones, no patrol aircraft, only silence and preparation. When the first wheel brushed the sensor, when the infrared lights swept into the kill zone, the battle did not begin. Do you support the war to eliminate these cartels? If yes, leave the number 2. If not, leave the number 5, and don't forget to like and subscribe to support us. Just 2 minutes after the lead vehicle crossed the death line, the Killbox Bravo battlefield erupted in lethal silence. No alarms, no warning shots, only death descending from every direction. Executed with split-second precision, a HIMARS battery from the 75th Artillery Brigade, concealed 19 kilometers away, fired its opening salvo. 6 GMLR's rockets, fitted with steel-penetrating warheads, tore through the air at nearly Mach 3, leaving no radar signature behind. Only faint streaks of light cut across the darkness before slamming directly into the convoy's second command vehicle, erasing it in an instant. The first explosion ripped through the armored vehicle like it was made of tissue paper, a searing blast of heat catapulting 2 gunmen off the roof. Their bodies were hurled 30 meters, torn apart in mid-flight. At the same instant, from the western cliffs, SEAL Team 6 snipers fired in perfect unison. Laser-guided 7.62 mm rounds sliced through bulletproof glass with surgical accuracy, each striking an enemy square in the forehead. Weapons clattered uselessly to the ground as the battlefield's darkness devoured every last echo of resistance. 4 Switchblade 600 UAVs, launched from a concealed position on Black Ridge, acquired the PKM heavy machine gun trucks, the cartel's last viable counterattack assets. In under 40 seconds, 5 enemy firebases were obliterated in blinding fireballs. Every strike was relayed live to the command center in crisp, high-definition thermal footage. On the desert floor to the north, Delta Force operators sprang Pincer 1, closing the trap from 600 meters out and sealing the enemy formation in a deadly vise. Within 3 minutes and 25 seconds of the opening blast, 11 convoy vehicles were reduced to flaming wreckage, debris strewn violently across the battlefield. 6 more flipped or lurched to a halt after shredding their tires on directional spike mines. But that was merely the opening act. Hidden beneath the route lay an intricate network of Claymore and M15 mines programmed not to erupt all at once, but in a precisely choreographed, fan-shaped sequence. Each detonation triggered the instant a vehicle entered its lethal arc. Every blast was engineered for maximum carnage, transforming the convoy into a mangled pile of scorched steel engulfed by roaring flames and choking pillars of thick black smoke. The 101st Brigade's electronic warfare team, wielding the cutting-edge Repack system, flooded the spectrum with jamming, instantly killing GPS signals across the battle space. The cartel's reconnaissance UAVs spiraled helplessly out of control, plummeting like broken-winged birds into the desert floor. At the same moment, Paladin M109 self-propelled howitzers roared from a concealed reserve position in the northeast, unleashing laser-guided cluster munitions that carpeted the convoy's only escape route in a lethal storm of sub-munitions, forever sealing off their line of retreat. Panic ripped through the cartel ranks faster than bullets could fly. Frontline commanders went dark as ECM devices crushed their radio networks into static. One desperate gunman clambered onto a heavy machine gun turret to return fire, only to be dropped instantly by a .50 caliber sniper round from 1,200 meters out, the round punching clean through his helmet. Inside the armored command vehicle, Salvador Eli Carranza frantically tried to rally his forces, but his encrypted satellite link was dead, smothered by powerful jamming gear originating from Fort Huachuca. This wasn't a battle. It was a clinical execution. The cartel, once the unchallenged terror of northern Mexico, now found itself hunted in utter silence, a cornered animal with nowhere left to run. At 4:52 a.m., as smoke still curled from the convoy's shattered lead vehicles and fentanyl containers hissed and smoldered beneath the scorched sand, a second wave of annihilation moved across the battlefield. Not with roaring artillery or streaking missiles, but with cold streams of data, invisible signals, and lines of silent code that erased every trace of resistance. Cartel commanders, hardened veterans drilled to counter drones, and sniper teams had never trained for an enemy they couldn't see, hear, or touch. Campaign-level electronic warfare, orchestrated by the 3rd Battalion of the 75th Digital Warfare Brigade in coordination with NSA and DIA signal intelligence teams, was unleashed from an underground command post in Tucson. As the REAP-X system came online, the battlefield dissolved into a labyrinth of radio waves. Satellite feeds were spoofed. GPS was jammed at the micro level. Cartel radios began transmitting fabricated coordinates. Alpha Unit believed it was moving west, unaware it had drifted 800 meters east. A logistics security team pulled back to what they thought were safe coordinates, only to walk directly into a Claymore minefield. No orders were issued. No one knew where they were. Meanwhile, U.S. Special Forces tapped into the real-time audio stream, decrypting every frantic transmission and filtering voices with ruthless efficiency. A mid-level commander was singled out by his unmistakable Sinaloa accent. 40 seconds later, an unarmed Ghost X UAV drifted silently overhead, its sensors locked on his makeshift command vehicle, painting the target with unerring precision to guide a devastating artillery strike straight onto his position. Every cartel movement was tracked not by eyes on target, but by body heat signatures, pulsing radio frequencies, and the faint seismic tremors of boots on sand. High atop Black Mesa, 2 ASA mini-radars swept the combat zone without pause, analyzing engine growl variations and the sharp acoustic signatures of weapon discharges to map exactly who was still fighting and precisely where. Every instinctive reaction, lifting a rifle, cracking open a vehicle door, pivoting to flee, was captured, processed, and converted into fresh, actionable coordinates in real time. Target coordinates refreshed every second and streamed instantly to artillery units 14 kilometers distant. There, Paladin M109 and HIMARS batteries thundered without mercy, ripping jagged scars across the battlefield. Yet the killing stroke never came from the ground. High overhead in utter silence, 4 Phoenix X UAVs, Lockheed's cutting-edge tactical drones, had been tracing tight spirals since 3:30 a.m., Stealth-coated in radar-absorbing skin and emitting zero emissions, each carried 8 BSDB-2 GBU-39 small-diameter bombs fitted with dual infrared and active radar seekers. They hung poised, engines hushed, ready to unleash surgical, annihilating strikes in the blink of an eye, leaving the enemy no margin, no warning, no hope of survival. When the order Priority Ground Target Neutralization was issued, Phoenix X UAVs silently opened their bomb bays. GBU-39s fell like invisible blades, precisely destroying command vehicles, jamming equipment, and the last drug caches. In less than 70 seconds, the cartel's mobile command center dissolved into smoke. No engine noise, no radar signature, no warning of death. At the same time, the last 4 vehicles escaped the kill zone, racing toward the Gila Mountains using backup GPS. They didn't know the positioning signals had been completely spoofed by MWK-11. Believing they were heading for Mexico, they were in fact driving straight into a pre-programmed death bay. 3 minutes later, 4 Switchblade 600s dove in, each warhead piercing the windshield and detonating inside the driver's cabin, clean and complete. The entire engagement unfolded without a single U.S. special operator having to move. No footprints, no personal gunfire, only fire, smoke, and cold data streams. 314 targets eliminated. At exactly 5:03 a.m., just 21 minutes after the opening shot, the electronic warfare system locked Pincer Alpha 2, severing all satellite links. The 300-900 MHz band was paralyzed. The remaining survivors were now completely isolated. No maps, no command, no calls for help. A gunman staggered out of the rubble, screaming into his radio, "Can anyone hear me?" Only static answered. The next second, a thunderous blast tore the night apart. No reply. No survivors. In a war without declarations, without trenches, without flags, the cartel was destroyed by an enemy they never saw. Data. Crossing the border, they thought they were hunters. In reality, they were prey, caught by an invisible blade honed from intelligence, technology, and lethal silence. As the cartel convoy was nearly wiped out, leaving behind only burned-out vehicles, downed UAVs, and panicked gunmen, another force quietly rose from the desert. From rock crevices, abandoned bunkers, and dry riverbeds, more than 900 troops from the 82nd Airborne Division, the U.S. Marine Corps, and Delta Force emerged, splitting into fan-shaped encirclement elements. They moved silently in low-noise JLTVs, armed with M4A1 rifles, Carl Gustaf anti-tank weapons, frequency jammers, night vision gear, and reconnaissance UAVs. They had lain motionless for 40 hours, coated in red dust, waiting for the exact moment when the cartel had nowhere left to run. When the last convoy sped into what it believed was a safe southern corridor, it plunged straight into the third blade of a 3-layer trap. From an altitude of 400 meters, infrared UAVs tracked every target. Sniper rifles opened fire, 5-round strings with absolute precision, not a single miss. Cartel AKs sprayed wildly into the darkness, futile. The screams, shouted orders, and groans of pain gradually faded into the sand. An armored armadillo command vehicle appeared on thermal screens, carrying 3 senior Sinaloa commanders, including Victor El Lobo Cardenas, the $10 million fentanyl kingpin. A guided UAV shot out the front tire, flipping the vehicle. 12 minutes later, U.S. forces moved in, neutralized the bodyguards, and captured El Lobo alive along with 2 encrypted hard drives containing drug distribution maps, transit hubs, and a list of 7 Mexican officials providing protection. By 5:41 a.m., just over an hour after the first shot, the cordon had closed. Not a single cartel member escaped. Those who ran were captured or killed. Those who played dead were detected by heart rate sensing drones. Not one American soldier was lost. Chinooks lifted El Lobo and the seized evidence back to Yuma Base in the dawn light. On the Sonoran Desert floor, only black smoke rose from wrecked vehicles, along with the stench of oil, rubber, and blood. 93 minutes. More than 300 gunmen, 46 modified military vehicles, 6 containers of fentanyl. 3 regional commanders completely eliminated on U.S. soil. No American casualties, no victory speeches, just a brief statement from the Pentagon. On social media, images spread. Columns of smoke hundreds of meters high, charred vehicles stretching for 3 kilometers, and one moment that felt human. A U.S. soldier kneeling beside a severely burned 17-year-old cartel gunman, gently prying a warped AK from his hand and offering him a bottle of water under the brutal sun. No victory flags, no cheers, only silence, a wordless warning. America can wait, can watch, and when the time comes, can end everything in under an hour. From now on, every drug trafficker crossing the border will have to listen to that silence before it returns to swallow them whole. Operation Killbox Bravo was more than a successful strike. It was a resounding affirmation of the United States' military power, strategic intelligence, and moral resolve in the age of modern asymmetric warfare. In less than 90 minutes, 3,000 U.S. soldiers, from SEAL Team 6 and Delta Force to the 82nd Airborne Division, operated invisibly and in perfect coordination, executing with absolute precision to destroy more than 300 heavily armed Sinaloa Cartel fighters, a transnational criminal organization wielding firepower on par with a full battalion. Employing the REAP-X electronic warfare system, Phoenix X UAVs, ASA mini radars, and a 3-pronged pincer strategy, the U.S. military fully neutralized the enemy force without exposing a single combat position. No casualties, no mistakes. The victory was achieved not through sheer numbers, but through patience, silent preparation, and an attack executed like an invisible blade. Every movement was calculated with exacting precision, from the prolonged wait to the final strike, ensuring complete destruction and absolute secrecy across the battlefield. But what should make us proud is not military skill alone, it is battlefield ethics. When a U.S. soldier knelt to offer water to a wounded young cartel member, when the gunfire stopped, human dignity remained. From this victory, Americans must understand that national security is not the responsibility of the military alone. It is the resolve of a nation that refuses to compromise with crime. Leaders must continue to invest in both soft and hard power under a single guiding principle. Enemies may cross the border, but they cannot overcome preparation. The ambush in the Sonora Desert delivers a powerful lesson. Meticulous preparation and discipline are the keys to overcoming even the most daunting challenges. No matter how formidable or self-assured the enemy, like a cartel convoy backed by dozens of armored vehicles and more than 300 gunmen, precise coordination, razor-sharp intelligence, and rapid adaptability allowed elite U.S. forces to turn arrogance into defeat. It is a reminder that true strength is found not in bravado, but in patience, strategy, and decisive action at exactly the right moment. And to those plotting the same fate, look to Sonora. Because next time, the United States won't need 90 minutes. Only 9. If you see this as a proud American victory, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what comes next. Turn on notifications, share this video with friends, and leave a comment with your thoughts. Do you believe America's silence will keep its enemies trembling? Stay tuned for the next video, where we explore new battlefields, new strategies, and the enduring strength of a nation that never bows.